for listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Mike Luke, joined by every Arizona fan's favorite national host, the great Aaron Torres. Hello, Aaron Torres. How are you doing?
So I'm good. First of all, it's been a while. I'm nervous. I haven't backed the A in a minute. Is there new hand signals or slow? It's just been a while since I backed the A. Also, it's only your camera that my hair always looks. My hair is always very presentable, but for some reason, when I come on your show, it looks very sloppy. I don't know why that is.
Because we're men of the people around here, Aaron Torres.
Okay.
We like being down in the nitty gritty. So it's not for the faint of heart on this show.
Nor should it be.
Now,
how are you, bud? I missed you. How's life?
Miss you as well, man. Thanks. Now listen to everybody out there. I've invited Torres on twice. The last 2 times wasn't able to come on. That's on.
I'm gonna give you the truth. You hit me up like a day after the Final Four. You're like, hey, you want to come on tomorrow? And I was like, dude, I've been on the road for like 10 straight days. Maybe just give me like a week.
That's fair.
Then you went like 2 months and something happened. I forget what happened there. And then I did have a doctor's appointment one day, and it's like one of those like, if you cancel, they give you an attitude, and I didn't want attitude from my doctor. But, listen, I'm like Tetairoa McMillan. You might not hear from me much in, June, July. I'm just working behind the scenes. But come week 1, boom, Torres is ready to go, and here I am. So,
we've got Aaron back in the rotation, especially we got a lot of basketball we're going to talk as well. But first, Aaron Torres, every now and then I get something right. If you remember last year, I told you about the fifth or sixth game of the season. There's this kid, Noah Fifita, you're going to want to keep a real close eye on. And so far, so good with Noah Fifita.
What is he, like 11-1 as a starter? Yeah, I'd say that was a pretty good take on your part. No, you did say that. And you said, hey, from a national perspective, these 2 kids have been friends forever. High school teammates, like you should get them on your show before they blow up. Next thing you know, I'm doing Fox Sports Radio on a Saturday night. They nearly beat USC at the Coliseum. Should have beat them, by the way. By the way, was Washington the game before or the game after? I can't remember.
It was the game before. That was his first career start. Yes.
And I remember watching that USC game like, oh, they're pretty close. And by the way, that was when USC we thought was still good. And then obviously, and then from there, it was just like, boom, it was like dynamite. It was awesome to watch. It was awesome to see. And by the way, I think everybody saw last Saturday why everybody was trying so hard to get McMillan and Fifita in the portal after, obviously, we know what happened, last January. So credit to Arizona for retaining those guys. And you guys got a fun team, man, to watch. I'll tell you that.
We're going to talk a lot about that. And like I said, we'll get to some basketball as well. Yes, Aaron Torres is greater than Jeff Goodman. We would very much agree on this.
But Jeff Goodman's an Arizona guy. You got to support him.
For all the Arizona fan base the entire time. All right. Now, let me ask you this. This is a very, because at Arizona football, it's something that, we don't generally have we don't have an assembly line of top flight talent that generally comes through here. I don't care what anybody says. Tetairoa McMillan is the best wide receiver in the country. I don't even believe that it's close. You look at I know a lot of people like Luther Burden, but Luther Burden, when he plays against good teams, catches for 16 yards. Tetairoa McMillan last year, 1,400 yards, 12 touchdowns, off to a 300 plus yard game. What is the national perception of T-Mac, and how much does it is the lack of hype maybe because he's at Arizona?
Well, I think the national perception maybe changed last weekend because, it was a pseudo standalone game. Now, there was some game going on the Big Ten Network in Seattle. I forget who was even playing in that one. Yeah, it was rainy. I think it smelled too. You could see the stink lines on the TV screen. But anyway, it was a national, game. There was no other game that I'm aware of really on in that time slot. And, even our update guy on Fox Sports Radio is not a huge college football guy. He knows the name, but it's like, oh, this McMillan kid, another touchdown, keeping you updated in Tucson. He just went for his 3rd touchdown, 72 yards, blah, 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 whatever. And so, listen, I don't know how you can't be a college. I don't know. I'm going to use a triple negative here. If you're a college football fan and you didn't know the name before Saturday, you probably should have, but I don't think there's any way that you didn't. Standalone game. It was a fun game. By the way, they needed him to make plays. The defense, obviously, I know you and Sheer and everybody have been talking about all week, but the defense didn't live up to its end of the bargain. So it's not like you won 63-7 and he was out middle of the second quarter. I mean, that was a game where you needed him late. He got the national acclaim. I saw Pat McAfee shouting him out, all that stuff. And so, again, if people weren't familiar, I do believe that that probably changed pretty significantly on Saturday night.
I think you're definitely going to see that change. Now, let me ask you this then. Just looking around. Oh, by the way, you want to hear something crazy? Mason Graham, probably the best defensive player in all of college football.
For the name, yes.
Yeah, all right, from Michigan. Yeah, he is. He was teammates with T-Mac and Noah Fifita at Servite High School.
Wow.
Jed Fish decided not to recruit him though, so that was an interesting one. Now
Boo.
just looking at this
Boo
team,
that man.
Yeah, for sure. Looking at this team defensively. I'm very curious because they got to get better. Listen, I think the offense is one of those things where they're going to score on basically anybody. It's a little bit of a Colorado type situation. We're going to get to Colorado here in a second, but it's a little bit of a Colorado type situation where you're like, all right, you're going to score on people, but are you going to be able to stop people? That's going to be the key to this season, Torres, is if Arizona can stop people, if they can finish about like I've been saying, finish 5th in the Big 12 in defense and everything will take care of itself. What say you, Aaron Torres?
So basically, the defense just has to be good enough. Like, what was it?
Good enough. Bend but don't break. Have you heard this term before?
I have. No, and I think there's probably something to it. Listen, I mean, again, you might have the stats, like whatever, forget the win-loss record, just the points per game since Fifita was put in as the starting quarterback of this team middle of the season last year. They're moving the ball on everybody. And so, listen, I don't think New Mexico is a team to take a victory lap on, but the one thing, listen, it was the most cliche talking point of the college football offseason, but it was accurate, is that the Big 12 is absolutely, at least in my opinion, we'll see if it plays out this way, wide open. And I think there's 6 or 7 teams that I don't know if they can win it, but think that they can win it going into week 2 of the season. And so I think Arizona should be one of them. I think the quarterback wide receiver is as good as anybody in the league. It's right up there with Colorado and maybe 1 or 2 others. But I bring it up because, yes, the statement that you made, I agree with 100%, is the defense doesn't have to be top 20 nationally. It just can't be terrible like it was on Saturday. By the way, that applies for a lot of teams, right? I mean, Colorado, just they're going to score. Can you stop people? By the way, there's other schools. Michigan's the opposite. They're going to stop people. Can they score? Nebraska, I think you are, what are you, your dad's from Nebraska or something? So you follow the
born and raised Nebraska, Crete, Nebraska. You want to hear a joke?
Sure. What's up?
Okay. What do you call somebody that moves out of Crete, Nebraska?
What?
An excretion.
Oh, wow.
Do you get it?
I do. Yeah. It's
funny.
A little, potty humor. Yeah. You tweet about your flatulence a lot, so I'm not surprised that came out of you.
Throw that one in there as well. Yes, exactly.
Excretion. Okay, all right, that's good. Well, I will use that if I ever meet anyone from Crete, Nebraska. How big is Crete, Nebraska?
About 8,000 people.
So you think
says, what's the N stand for in Nebraska? Helmet knowledge. I've heard that one before.
That's good.
Colorado. What's your take on Colorado and Deion Sanders?
As far as week 1, big picture, 30,000 foot view.
Let's talk on the field first,
sure,
and then we'll get to, because obviously he's been a marketing boom for a place that nobody cared about before then. What is your take on what you've seen on the field?
So I felt like I watched a different game than everybody else last week against North Dakota State, because I saw as soon as the game went, oh, it's the exact same thing as last year. They're terrible. They're going to win 4 games. This is what I saw. I saw a defense that was committing a lot of dumb penalties early. Yes, they got hit on a couple slants early, but basically from the middle of the second quarter until the middle of the fourth quarter, North Dakota State did not move the football at all. And by the way, most of it was kind of QB runs. You're not going to, you're going to face good quarterbacks like that, but Dylan Raiola is not going to be carrying the ball 15 times this weekend for Nebraska. He's just not. And so I thought the defense, in my opinion, was better. By the way, because I wanted to make sure I had this accurate, but I looked it up. They gave up like 449 yards, which sounds terrible. 88 was on the final possession. 49 was on the final play of the game. So a tenth of the yards that they gave up was on that final Hail Mary that fell short. So I don't think the defense was as bad as people think. And to the point we just made on Arizona, you just got to be a little bit better on defense because the offense is going to deliver. Now, the concern with the offense, which I do think is a concern, because everyone was talking about the defense. I thought the O-line did not look better to me. Not an O-line expert, not, Cole Kubelik.
You played O-line in the NFL. Let's be honest here, Torres.
I did play O-line a little in high school. I was very undersized, as you can imagine. You can imagine there's not a lot of 6'8", 280-pound kids growing on trees in central Connecticut. So, I didn't, whatever. But anyway, so the point I'm trying to make with the O-line, I did not play in the NFL, despite what may or may not be floating around on the internet. But, listen, there was the fourth down early in the game, couldn't convert it. Late in the game, there was a couple times where they wanted to run the ball, keep the clock moving. I know there was the Shador pass late, whatever. But there was several times where they wanted to run the football and could not. And I think that's a concern. I think it's an especially concern against Nebraska this weekend, who's really good up front. So the 30,000-foot view is, I think they're improved. I didn't see enough of an improvement for me to be like, this is a 9-3 team that's competing at the top of the Big 12. But I think I will say this. Last thought, and then I'll toss it back to you. I know I'm going long. This is a big weekend because I think if they lose this weekend, then they're just a little bit of a sideshow. I don't think anybody really cares. If they win this weekend, though, I think it does turn into maybe a mini version of what we saw last year until they start losing. And
you start wondering how good they are, because here's the thing too with Nebraska. Nebraska doesn't have Jeff Sims anymore. They're much better with Dylan Raiola. So we will find that one out off the. Let me ask you this. Is Deion sustainable off the field? Then it just seems like there's always something going on. What say you on that one?
I mean, he certainly gets it's weird because what you're signing up for when you bring him on as the head coach. Yeah, I don't know because
I don't know either.
Yeah. Cause to me, it's like, if this was Georgia, it's like Billy Napier. Billy Napier saying dumb crap, but he's also not winning. And if he was winning and he was calling out fans in rural central Florida, nobody would care, but he's not winning. But I don't even know if Deion has to win. He just makes Colorado just think about it. They're playing the 7:30 Eastern NBC primetime game. NBC has determined that that's the biggest game that they can put in that window. By the way, next week, primetime game against Colorado State. Oklahoma State later in the year, we already know is primetime. So no pun intended. So he just brings them so much exposure that I don't know how much he would actually have to lose for the scale to tip to where it's not worth dealing with his crap. But I'd be curious because I don't have that answer. I'll also be curious. I know he says all the right things about, he's committed for the long term. If it goes completely sideways this year, both of his sons leave, I would be curious if he actually sticks around. I know he says he's going to. I don't know if I believe him, though.
All right, now let's talk a little bit about conference realignment here. You and I were talking about this on the phone the other day.
You lied to me. You said Arizona UConn was the next great Big 12 rivalry. That's what you promised me, Mike Luke. It's what you promised me.
You got to exert your influence there.
I know. You're right. It's my fault.
All right, I blame you. All right, so we're going to get to hoops here in just a second because I want to obviously talk about that while we have the great Aaron Torres on. But here's the thing with Brett Yormark. Brett Yormark is going to look to poach the rest of the ACC. Now, right now, Clemson and Florida State don't look particularly good, but they're still name brands. First question is Dabo Swinney, is this thing done is he done as a top 5 program? It just feels like this is not the same thing anymore.
Yeah, and it's so funny, and that's one of the fun things about hosting, national sports talk. You get to talk about all these things. They're done as a national program. And so what's interesting is, they were really the only team I feel like were that whole, we have to evaluate college football differently. I don't think that really applies to Clemson. Florida State loses to Georgia Tech. You just sit there and say, okay, it stinks, but they can still win the ACC, be the 4 seed, whatever. But with Clemson, 3 years, we're not talking ancient history. 2021, they played Georgia in the season opener. Georgia has a late pick 6 to win the game. They lose 10-3. So they were every bit Georgia's equal for essentially the entire game. Fast forward, we all saw what happened on Saturday. And so Clemson, I get it. They can still make a run and win the ACC and get into that playoff, but they're clearly not at the level of Georgia, of whoever else you deem to be at the top of the sport, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, whoever you think are those teams. And so I'm just curious, if they were to get that 4 seed and get a first round bye and win the ACC, but they get blown out in round 2 by whoever, Is that acceptable to that fan base and to that administration? Now, they're not going to fire Dabo, but I just don't know. Like, I don't know what is deemed acceptable for him. Now, obviously, if they go keep going, last year they went, 8-4 during the regular season. They keep going 8-4. That's not going to be acceptable. But I don't even know, like, for most teams, like if Kansas State is the 3 seed, wins the Big 12, but gets smoked by Texas in round 2, nobody's going to be like, well, Kansas State, I mean, what are we doing here? It's like, no, like for them, that's the good season. But Clemson was just on such an elite level on the Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia tier. They're clearly not there anymore. And that's why I'd be curious to see what happens if things keep going sideways.
Okay, now let's get to, because Torres, the thing that where he has really made his bones is Arizona basketball, with on the being the strident defender of the A. We very much appreciate that when Torres comes here.
You back the A. I guess I defend the A.
You defend the A. I back the A. Exactly. All right. Arizona basketball in the Big 12. Let's talk about this. I am ecstatic because, again, in the Big 12, you had an entire group, you had basically an entire entity that did not, you had fan bases that just did not care about basketball at all in the Pac-12. You had Oregon State, didn't care. You had, heck, even Oregon fans don't care. You had USC fans clearly don't care. You've got Stanford fans don't care. Cal fans don't care. Arizona going into the best conference in college basketball where everybody cares is going to be a very interesting adjustment, Aaron.
It's going to be, and listen, I'm a defender of the A. I mean, everybody knows that, but I'll be curious because what's been interesting about Arizona, and I know you know this, and I know your audience knows this, and I hate to say this, but like Arizona's problem has been in conference play under Tommy Lloyd, which is weird to think about, right? Is like they have all those great wins in the out of conference, the Indiana game a few years ago at Duke. I was taking victory laps left and right after that Duke game. Everybody was thrilled. I was, you and I were planning to get bunk beds in Phoenix for the Final Four. It was going to be a blast. And then Pac-12 play comes and they're losing at Stanford. Then Pac-12 play comes and they're losing wherever. I can't remember everywhere that they lost over the last couple of years. And so that's where it's going to be interesting is, in the Pac or at Oregon State, like, you could obviously get right in the Pac-12 where I don't think you can have a bad 4-game stretch in the Pac-12 or in the Big 12 and go 3-1 if you're not playing good basketball. I think you're going 1-3 in that game, in that stretch, And so like, that's where I would be concerned is that there's just not a lot of easy games in that league. And you got to show up every night. You can't have these games like you had at Oregon State, at wherever we just decide not to show up. Sorry, I know I'm going long on the answer. So
No, you're good. Here's where I'm at with Tommy Lloyd. I think Tommy Lloyd's a really good coach, but I have 2 concerns about Tommy Lloyd, and they're correctable concerns. I think he's a little too easy on his players. I don't think that he really holds them accountable per se. I think Kylan Boswell is a perfect example of that. Kylan Boswell last year was going to play 20 minutes regardless. It didn't matter how bad he was going to be. It didn't matter if he was caught at casino tables. It didn't matter what he was doing if he was out partying. And I think that is an issue because when you don't have accountability, I think the players just feel like they can essentially do whatever they want. The other thing too that I've noticed in tournament games is Arizona needs, I believe under Tommy Lloyd, Arizona needs players that can make plays off the bounce. And because when the shots don't fall, if you don't have guys that can make plays off the bounce, that's where Arizona has gotten into trouble in the past. You look at the team a couple years ago that lost to Princeton. Nobody on that team could make plays off the bounce, including Azuolas Tubelis. Then
I have something I want to ask you after this rant is done.
Sure. And then you've got last year, you've got with Jaden Bradley, he was the only one that was keeping Arizona in the game by getting to the free throw line, by getting into traffic. When Pella's shot went, he needs guys that can make plays off the bounce. And I think this year he's got a little bit better combination of that. I think that's going to be good for him. But what say you, Torres? I see you thinking something right there. I see a big thought bubble coming up.
There is, yeah. So first of all, I am curious, and I want to ask your perspective for this, is that you mentioned kind of holding everybody accountable. It felt like early in the year, last year, this was a season ago, Caleb Love played a role on that team. But listen, Kylan Boswell was awesome at Duke. Keyshawn Johnson was awesome at Duke. And it just felt like as the season went on, it became more and more, we're going to step back and let Caleb Love cook. Right. And I kind of worry about an off season of Caleb Love kind of, feeling himself around campus. And he's like, I'm the captain now. Last year I had to play nice and I was just part of the team. And now it's like, I feel like he's that, whatever movie gif where he's like, he's looking around. He's like, I'm the captain now and I'm running this ship. Are you concerned about that at all? Because the talent's there. KJ, I love KJ Lewis. We both love KJ Lewis. Don't know what Shear was seeing with him when he was watching him in high school. Neither here nor there. Jaden Bradley, I obviously love, but that is the point.
Trey Townsend. Keyshawn Johnson was a great call on your part, but I like Trey Townsend as well. A totally different player. Here's where I'm at with Caleb Love as well. And I think this is very simple. Because Caleb Love's not like one of these guys, like one of the white guys that just runs and can't do anything off the bounce. Caleb Love can get to the basket. And what I need from Caleb Love is every single game, 5 to 7 free throws. Now, listen, he's going to take some bonehead shots. I totally get all of that, but I need him to be able to attack the hoop as well. When he attacks the hoop, that's where I think everything kind of plays off of. And again, he's got the talent. Physically, he can do it. And I don't believe he's probably going to play in the NBA. But if he wants to play in the NBA, he's got to get more efficient. Now, again, last year he was more efficient. He was about 42%, which was obviously up from North Carolina. But I need him more in that 45% range. And I need him shooting free throws. When he's shooting free throws, everything goes from there. I don't want to see any more one-legged three-point runners like we saw against Clemson or anything like that. I need him getting to the basket, Torres, period.
I don't disagree. I'm just curious, I'm just curious how it all goes. By the way, I was not making fun of Shear, but it's a little, you're the one that tells me that he totally misevaluated KJ Lewis. As I told you at the Pac-12 tournament, I said, I've heard your take on Shear on KJ Lewis. I have never actually heard Shear's take on KJ Lewis. So I still don't know what it is. I just know that you were underwhelmed by it. That's all.
Yeah, no, it was a terrible take. It was an awful take, and we will not. I
love Shear. Let the record show. I'm Team Shear, Team Torres, Team Shear, Team Mike Luke, everybody.
All right, yes, you are. You back the A. You back the A all the way around.
Defend the A sometimes too when needed.
Absolutely. Like I said, our good friend Ben One White, Dan and Erica still talk about it. It was a great time for them to meet you up there as well. Very good stuff.
Real quick, so we got to have the conversation. What happened with my Huskies? They just didn't get the votes. That's the whole thing. Everybody's like, I said on my show, I was like, if it got out, I don't think it's nothing. But I said on my show, I used a football analogy. I did the radio thing. I said, I think it's across the 50-yard line. I don't think it's in the red zone because I just never believed that they would get enough votes from the school presidents. So go ahead.
I still, you want to hear something? I still believe that they're going to end up in the Big 12. I still believe it.
What time frame are we talking about here?
I think I still think by this time next year, they will be there will be something in writing that they will be joining the Big 12. Yes, I do.
Can I quote you on that? Like, is that? You did just put it out there on the stream, so
yeah, nobody's listening, so it doesn't matter. 23-35. Yes, exactly. Kevin Thomas, put this in there. Our esteemed producer.
What happened to Jacob Franklin? See, this is the problem when I only come on like once every 6 months. What happened with Jacob Franklin?
Jacob Franklin got another job, and he moved. Guess where? Guess where he's moving up to as well for this new tech job he got? SRS, Smelly Rainy Seattle.
No, are you serious?
Yeah. Well, it's around there. It's like in Tacoma or something, but same spot. Yeah. Well, I miss Jacob Franklin though. But Kevin Thomas from St. Louis, by the way. Can you name the other U of A? Can you name the last two U of A players from St. Louis, Torres?
Well, Caleb Love is one, right?
You get all time, man. You get free drinks the entire night at the Big 12 tournament, which you will go to.
I don't know if I'm going back to Kansas City. I'm not going to lie. This is why we need UConn in the Big 12 so that Yormark can just bring the Big 12 tournament to Brooklyn or wherever.
Agreed.
Did they already announce Vegas? A Big 10 announced Vegas. We got to get it back to Vegas.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Well, either way, next time I see you, Courtney Ramey. Also from St. Louis.
Courtney Ramey. Fun fact on Courtney Ramey. The last player to ever commit to Rick Pitino at Louisville. Got fired like an hour later for paying Brian Bowen. Yeah. He never played at Louisville because, whatever.
Floppy hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I wonder where he is.
Let's look around the Big 12 then. I believe, and I take a little bit of a, you have Alabama as your preseason number one, correct?
Yeah. In basketball, yes.
Yes. Why do you have them over Kansas?
I hate the Big 12, obviously, is what it comes down to. No, listen, they made a Final Four last year.
I'm not bashing you, guys.
What's that?
You can definitely make the case for Alabama, but make the case for Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they made a Final Four last year, came out of the West region. It was there for the taking for Arizona, but we don't have to talk about that. Mm-hmm. Bring back most of their key players. Nate Oates is, I think, maybe the third best coach in college basketball right now. I don't know. You could put him ahead of Bill Self, but listen, Dan Hurley's at the top of the pyramid right now. I think Self and Nate Oates are right there. Mm-hmm. My only concern, and this sounds corny, but it's the truth. I do wonder if they have too many good players. Like, they have 13 legitimately awesome players. And I don't, you can't keep 13 guys happy. And when you're recruiting them in April and May, everybody can say all the right things about, I know I'm going to be a backup. Maybe you redshirt me. I get it. I want to be part of this. We know what it's like behind the scenes. Kids, especially in this era, they want to play. They want to play now. They don't want to sit. They don't want to wait. And that is something that I do think concerns me a little bit. So Kansas has kind of that more defined top 7, top 8, top 9. But Alabama, I mean, they have everything. They have shooting. They have size. Listen, you guys saw them in LA. I mean, Grant Nelson is going to be playing the 4. He's 6'11". Jaron Stevenson's going to be playing the 3. He's 6'10". It's like, but they're athletic. They can shoot, they can pass, they can dribble. So they have everything. It's just, I do worry about finding playing time for everybody.
All right. Now with Arizona in the Big 12, I do think that this is a tougher team. And that's another thing too, that I
better
think
be.
Yes. I mean, it's gotta be. Yeah. I think one thing with Tommy Lloyd again, and I think Tommy Lloyd's done a very good job, but he's got to have, I think, guys that are instinctively tough. How about that? And I think when you've got Jaden Bradley, KJ Lewis, and Caleb Love, that is toughness. To me is a team that is more equipped to be able to go against the Kansases, the Baylors, who we're going to get to in a second, Iowa States, et cetera, your Houstons, et cetera, et cetera. That is why I'm a little bit more, I am more bullish on this Arizona team, although I was bullish on last year's team.
Are you making any road trips this year? There's a lot of great, as you found out, there's a lot of great venues in the Big 12.
Oh, I am making, yes, I am. I'm going to have to look at my schedule, but I'm going to make a couple of them. You should, hey, you know what you should do, Torres? You should come down here for Duke's coming to McHale.
You know what's crazy? So Duke, what are they? Is that a Friday night or Thursday night?
You're going to come up with an excuse not to come. I can see it right now.
No. What is that? A Friday night or Thursday night?
Yeah, I think it's a Friday night. I'd have to look, but yeah.
So Duke plays Kansas in Vegas the following Tuesday. So it's a West Coast swing. I will be in Vegas because I actually have family in Vegas. We do Thanksgiving in Vegas. So I usually go out on Tuesday anyway. So I'll just probably leave at, 6 a.m. instead of 6 p.m. on that Tuesday of Thanksgiving week. So it'd be a lot of jet setting. I don't know. Torres is a simple man. I can't just, I don't have the private jet to just fly from game to game to game. So we'll see.
We'll take that as a hard pass.
No, but I want to know where you're going. I went to Fog Allen for the first time last year. It was unbelievable.
So I've been to Fog Allen. I went to Fog Allen in 2003 when Arizona played Kansas, when Arizona was ranked 1 and Kansas was 6.
Wow.
Yep. I have, let's see, Torres, a lot of people are saying make it to Tucson here. A lot of people in the comments saying this. So, I mean, you might want to do it. You got to do it.
People saying I would never come to Tucson. I was in Tucson 2 years ago. I was there for...
You're being called out. You're being called out. You are the king. You are the residing national king of Tucson. You have to be able to make it down here at some point.
I was there when they beat UCLA. I was there for the famous Mac Etienne game. The game that refuses... The game that Mick Cronin refuses to ever return to Tucson for. I was there.
Right. Yeah.
Thank goodness.
He's such a gas bag. What do you think now about, let's talk about some of these other teams in the Big 12. What do you think about Houston then? I am not quite as bullish on Houston as other people, and here's why. Listen, I know you returned 7 or 8 guys, but you saw also last year when Jamal Shed was not in the game, they really struggled offensively. They've got obviously some of the same players back. You bring in Milos Uzan, who's definitely not Jamal Shed. I don't know that they properly replaced him. What say you on Houston?
Yeah, I've seen it year over year. So I can't, there was a time, how do you replace Marcus Sasser? How do you replace Rob Gray? How do you go on and on down the list? Remember Rob Gray? I think he had one guy had a ponytail. I forget. I think it was Rob Gray. Mm-hmm. So they've just done it year over year. So no, I'm actually not worried. Listen, I think I understand what you're saying as somebody who did have Houston advancing far in my NCAA tournament bracket, because I know everyone cares about my 2024 bracket. But yeah, by the way, I was just on in Indianapolis. I had Purdue in the championship game. Let the record show, losing to UConn. Purdue fans hate me, but that's okay. It's no big deal. So you could say, oh, how do you replace him? But there's a difference between having to replace him in the middle of a game that you're winning in the middle of a season where he's an All-American, as opposed to having 9 months to figure it out. Now, I will say, well, thank you. I make a few of them here and there. Milos Uzan, I don't buy, but Samson's just so free. Dude, I mean, just think about this. Just think about this time last year. And I don't know where they were ranked in all the preseason polls, but they came into the Big 12. The Big 12 is the toughest conference in college basketball, even with pre-Arizona entering in. And they just beat the crap out of everybody. Like there was a stretch. They lost their first 2 Big 12 games, and then they won they lost. Arizona Duke is not on Saturday the 14th, by the way. Let the record show. But is it? I don't know. But so remember,
it is.
Oh,
Andy Bryant is Andy Bryant is an oracle of knowledge. So go ahead.
Okay. All right. I thought it was like November. I see November 22nd on ESPN.com, but that's neither here nor there.
Too, yeah.
So what was I saying with the Big 12? Oh, dude. So Houston, they come into the Big 12, they lose their first 2 games, and then they literally went, I think they went, what is there, 18 games in the Big 12 last year?
Yeah.
I think they went, what would that be, 15-1 the rest of the way, and the only loss was at Kansas.
Right.
Like, are you freaking kidding? So like they just came in and beat the crap out of everybody last year. And so if they beat the crap out of everybody last year, I find it very hard to believe that they're just going to take this dramatic step back. Now, what I will say about the Big 12, so many good teams, man. Like, so many good teams.
It's wild how good there are. Now, also Baylor. Let's talk about Baylor for a second. Baylor is very interesting. You got
Go ahead. No. I insist, please.
I see you. You had something that was bubbling at the tip of your tongue. What do you got?
I don't think they've really figured out the post-championship thing, but I will say I do like their personnel this year. Jeremy Roach, who I completely cut you off on, I apologize.
Right.
Former Duke point guard is good. Norchad O'Meara is good. And I'll say this, like VJ Edgecombe, like everybody's like Cooper Flagg's going number 1. And it's like, there are people that are like, VJ Edgecombe was the best player in that class. So
when I look at VJ Edgecombe, and again, I could be wrong. I know that Cooper Flagg's got all the hype. I get it. But just watching him this summer, that looks like a player that's totally different. Like there's just some dudes that just look totally different than everybody else. That's one of those guys. That's going to be an interesting one to follow. Now, also Iowa State is another team that another top 10 team. You could realistically have 5 teams in the top 10 at some point this season in the Big 12, and I don't think anybody would bat an eye. Iowa State with TJ Olselberger done a very good job as well. They return everybody. Where do you stand on them, Torres?
No, and I like them because, to me, I think, listen, we talk about all the different, what does it take to win in college basketball? It's like, really, to win in March, you got to have NBA dudes. That's number 1. But year-over-year experience does matter. And I do think as we get deeper into this portal era, like I hear all these stats of like, no team who's ever replaced more than 9 players has ever done this. And it's like, well, now if you have a new coach, you're replacing the entire roster. Like that's just a given. Musselman replaced everybody at USC. Calipari replaced everybody at Arkansas. Pope replaced everybody at Kentucky. I'm sorry. All those teams are not missing the NCAA tournament. Okay. So, but I bring it up because I do think having year-over-year continuity matters. UConn brought back 3 starters 2 years ago. Last year, they really only added Cam Spencer in terms of a difference-making guy. So I guess Steph Castle too. I guess he was pretty good.
That's a difference maker.
Yeah, I guess he was the 4th pick in the draft. But they brought back 3 or 4 or 5 guys that played significant roles on the previous year's championship team. So I do like Iowa State. By the way, that's one I've never been to. If I was on the Mike Luke tour this year, that would be one that I would consider. Is Arizona going there this year?
I don't think. Let me look at Arizona. I don't know about that one. I should know this though. I don't know this.
I know Kansas does not come to Tucson, right? Which was a big
that's a bummer. Arizona goes to Fog, but that's not. I'm not happy.
Arizona fans, I'm telling you right now, Torres to listen. I'm a defender of the A. I'm a backer of the A. Even though I kind of forgot how to back the A, but it's coming back to me right now. Never tell anybody how to spend their money. It's a tight economy. We don't have to get into all this right now. It's election season, whatever. If you can afford to go to Fog Allen Fieldhouse, just do it. It was a bucket list thing for me. My alma mater played there last year. UConn, one of their only 3 losses. It is as good as advertised. It's loud. It's hot. It's so like you could never build that building in 2024, but it's such a home court advantage. The students are crazy. I said when I was there, I said, this is what Duke claims their student section to be, but actually it's the best. Yeah. Best student section I've ever seen in person. So I'm not telling anybody how to spend their money. Like I said, no, things are tight right now, but if you can afford it, just go.
All right, now, Torres, let me ask you this. I'm going to get you on record right now. Will you watch one Arizona game in person this coming season? You're going to have 38 opportunities. One Arizona game in person. That is all we ask. Can we get you to commit right now?
Well, I'll tell you what, no pressure. I'll be at the Final Four. I know that. So, so I mean, now it's on you. I mean, Mike, you got to back the A a little bit harder. Maybe they can get to San Antonio.
I like it. You're laying down the gauntlet. I very much do like that. All right, now let's talk about your UConn Huskies. They stink, obviously. So I still believe that they are going to end up in the Big 12, and I feel very, very comfortable in saying that. Now, Danny Hurley. This is also a situation too where sometimes money can't buy happiness. First of all, the Lakers deal was a fake deal that everybody.
It was faker than the girls that you see on Instagram. I'm sorry, no offense to the young ladies listening, but like, dude, I was all over that. I got criticized. By the way, the first day, I said this is a bogus report from Woj, and people I like in the media were like, "You think Woj is making this up to help Dan Hurley?" I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what and by the way, he gets to break the story that Dan Hurley's not going to, he gets to break the story that Dan Hurley's going to take the interview. He gets to break the story that Dan Hurley's coming back. Then he gets to break the story that JJ Redick, is going to take the job. It was so obvious the entire time. And you and I, listen, I'm not trying to be like we're in the media. But it's like, dude, like, when a story is not only planted, but the behind the scenes chess pieces that are moving to make certain things look good and look bad and whatever. And so, I mean, I talked about it that entire week. I said, I never believed he was leaving. Somebody's probably heard me say this story. There was only one time that entire weekend that I believed that he was leaving. And you're going to laugh when it was. It was the last 10 minutes when his wife showed up at the facility with him. And everybody was like, well, I mean, the wife's not going to show up at the facility if he's leaving. She would never. And I'm like, I actually think it's the opposite. Does she show up at the facility on a Monday in June otherwise? So that was the last 10 minutes was the only time that I thought he was leaving. Thought it was a total sham. Anyway, enough of Torres, taking victory laps.
About it either is that with UConn, first of all, he's an East Coast guy. Seems like a fairly simple guy. The Lakers is this isn't the Lakers situation of like when Jerry West was running things. That thing is a total train wreck. Why would you want to go there? Especially too, when you've got a formula where you're running a college basketball right now. And that's always been his goal. This dude could run off 4 or 5 championships by the time he's done here. I mean, with the way that he's able to construct his roster and coach, it just never made sense to me. And Mike Krzyzewski said the same thing a while back. And keep in mind, that's when you had a prime Kobe. He said, sometimes money just can't buy happiness and comfortability.
Comfortability.
Okay. Yes, exactly. That's the way it is, though. Good job. I say good on Danny Hurley.
No, and listen, and that was so. First of all, you said like the Lakers, they're not who they were. So I was on my last day of vacation, most relaxing vacation I ever took. I woke up to the news that he's leaving, and people were like, "Torres, you don't turn down the Lakers if you." And I said, "You do." I was like, so I was in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, and I said, "Did I?" Nice. I go, "Did I go to sleep in Cabo and wake up in 1984? Because what are you talking about? You don't turn down the Lakers." Literally everybody turns down the Lakers, dude. Like Darvin Ham, first-time head coach. JJ Redick, first-time head coach. And then the other thing, if you just read the Woj report, it was like one thing that could be appealing to Dan Hurley is the ability to develop Bronny James. And I'm like, we're doing this right now. We're pretending that Bronny James is at all a factor in this. And like, it's easy now to forget all these stupid details, but I talked about it every day for like 8 straight days on, my show, podcast, YouTube, whatever. But it's like, dude, it didn't even make sense. By the way, Dan Hurley had a famous interview with JJ Redick where he said, we don't just recruit players, we recruit parents as well. We don't want your mom calling us up or your dad calling us up complaining if you have a DNP. So now he's going to go coach Bronny and LeBron together. It just never made sense. I never understood it. Just don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get that one either. I do not get that. I've never understood that one. So, when it comes though back to, let me ask you this: when you look at Tommy Lloyd right now, what do you, through 3 years, he's obviously won the second most games in college basketball history through his first 3 years, but he's been to 2 Sweet 16s and a first round exit. Where do you stand with Tommy Lloyd? What do you think Tommy Lloyd's upside is, and just what do you see going forward for the next 5 years for Arizona basketball?
I think it's going to be an interesting year, like I said, because of the Big 12 stuff. The out of conference, they've been great. Can you do it consistently? Because in the Big 12, listen, there's just, I know I said it a minute ago, there are no like 4-game stretches where you can get right. I remember, you'll appreciate this story maybe more than anybody. Remember the year that TCU, Eddie Lampkin almost beat Arizona in the tournament, Tommy's first year?
Oh, yeah.
So I remember interviewing Jamie Dixon that offseason, and because TCU was whatever. Nobody was talking about. There was never a moment where it was like, you know who might surprise some people this year? It's TCU. It was just like they were in the tournament. You didn't even think about it. And so I remember asking Jamie Dixon, I was like, was there a moment that season where you felt like, okay, maybe we're better than our record says we were? And he goes, yeah. He goes, the thing is, in the Big 12, what Aaron Torres just said a minute ago, he goes, in the Big 12, you're just never going to have that 6-game win streak where you go 6-game stretch where you go 5-1 with 3 blowouts and you feel really good about yourself. It's just too hard of a league. And so I think Arizona fans understand that. But I think Tommy Lloyd, I just think there needs to be a level of consistency. If you go to Iowa State and then you play Houston at home and you go 0-2, but you're awesome in both games, that's okay. Well, I don't want to speak for Arizona fans. Maybe you would feel differently, whatever. But I do think there's a difference between if you go to Iowa State and Houston and you play great in both games, you just end up on the wrong side of it, where you go to Houston, you maybe lose, you lose by 3 in the final seconds, and then you come home, and lose to, whoever, Central Florida the next game. Like that's the thing for me, is there has to be a level of consistency once you get to league play, because there just hasn't been in the early part of the Tommy Lloyd tenure.
Yes, exactly. To sum that one up, yes. And you also can't sleepwalk in games, because if you sleepwalk in games, a game that you might have beat Stanford by 4 points, you're going to lose by 40 to Iowa State.
Exactly.
So the games, you can't sleepwalk. You can't do any of that. Okay. Now, no better time to become a PHNX diehard. Check this out. You can become all kinds of good stuff. Merch, access to all the premium written content, entrance to the Discord lounge, free t-shirts, your choice from the locker. Now, Aaron Torres, where can they find you doing your stuff?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Aaron_Torres. We have the Aaron Torres podcast. We talk, college football, college basketball, 365 days a year, much like you. By the way, you guys did an awesome job coming up with content every single day. It's
got to do it.
You got to do it. Got to pay those bills. It ain't easy all the time. So you, Sheer, everybody's been crushing it here. And then, Aaron_Torres on Twitter. We do have our Torres on Arizona account. It is run by an intern at Arizona. I do not run all those pages. And I got to say, our Torres on Arizona intern does an unbelievable job.
Does an amazing job.
She does. She is a student. She's got like a graphic design background, and she just does stuff like with graphics that I couldn't even imagine. She was all over the Tetairoa McMillan stuff this weekend. And so, Torres on Arizona. If I'm too annoying on my personal page, that's all Arizona all the time. And then obviously Fox Sports Radio every Saturday night, National College Football Recap Show, 11 to 2 a.m. Eastern time. So especially when the Wildcats aren't playing late, because obviously you got to go to PHNX Wildcats when the Wildcats are having that 10:30 Eastern kickoff. But other than that, you got to visit Torres at foxsportsradio.com.
All right. He is the Aaron Torres. He is the honorable, or the, what is the term? The honorary mayor of Tucson for everything that he has done for the University of Arizona. We very much appreciate you. And like I said, Ben and Erica still talk about Las Vegas. I had a great time with you as well. Very good time.
What a weekend.
You are even cooler in person than you are on.
Oh, stop. You're embarrassing me. And you're exactly like I expected. You showed up in sweatpants, whatever. So
that's exactly who I am. What you see on air is what you get. There is no.
It is true. But that is an important, you got to be genuine. First of all, I think I'm genuine just because I don't wear sweatpants to the bar. But I'm just saying, you're as salt of the earth as it gets. Everybody who I know enjoys your show. Mike is as good of a guy off air as he appears to be on air. A little quirky, a little different. But you know what? We love him anyway.
All right. For Mr. Aaron Torres, thank you. You almost made me cry. I'm very happy right now. You made my day. We will be back. We have him back in the rotation, especially with basketball coming on.
There we go. I'll be here.
For Aaron Torres, I'm Mike Luke. Kevin Thomas behind the scenes, TTFN, Ta-ta for now. You've been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.